Angel's Landing. It's kind of the full package. Unique, thrilling, indescribably beautiful. Nestled in the middle of Zion Canyon, one of the most spectacular and remarkable landscapes in the world. And at less than 6 miles in length, it's also extremely accessible. Though that's perhaps its greatest flaw. Yeah, we're pretty close. Regardless, you can't make the iconic climb along the chain section to the summit without passing this ominous sign, which once tracked the number of hikers known to have fallen to their deaths while hiking along this section of the trail. Today I'm going to tell you how I was very nearly one of them. This isn't internet BS. This is 100% real, and I think the time has come to share my experience with you. In July 2015, I literally came within a few terrifying inches of plummeting nearly 1,500 feet to the canyon floor. Now, I'm not a novice hiker by any metric, as longtime followers of my channel will attest. I'm not a selfie taker, nor am I prone to hazardous antics for the sake of likes online. I have logged tens of thousands of miles in the backcountry, exploring North America's most sublime and rugged landscapes, and with each mile, my respect for the land has grown, as has my respect for the potential hazards ready to humble even the most experienced adventurers. That respect has been greatly amplified by a few near disasters, including a terrifying visit to the summit of Angel's Landing. As is often the case, there were no sirens or voices from heaven warning me of the coming peril. Quite the opposite. My wife and I had spent the day marveling at the undeniable beauty of Zion Canyon, and when the time came, we moved deliberately and attentively along Angel's Landing's world-famous chain section. We oohed and awed at the scenery, scanned the sky for condors, which we've seen numerous times in Zion National Park, all the while never losing focus on the 1,000-foot drops that have made this trail so famous. Before long, and without incident, we reached the summit, as we had before, and after surveying the summit for a time, my wife sat down while I tried to grab some final shots, the most impactful of which are always the stomach-tightening glimpses over the edge, with nothing but 1,500 empty feet of air separating you from the canyon floor. Not at all ignorant of the hazards, I took great care in positioning my feet and ensuring the ground was secure and that I was vertigo-free before raising my camera. After capturing a few minutes of footage, I lowered my camera, taking a few final glimpses over the edge, when without warning, I was struck in the back of the head. The initial impact lasted only a fraction of a second, but reacting to the collision, I flinched instinctively, moving away from whatever had hit me, and towards the emptiness in front of me. Losing my balance and struggling to stay in control, with my heart racing, I managed to recover, and turned my head to see a kite darting wildly in figure eights around my head. That's when the kite hit me again. Its strings, this time wrapping around my neck, shoulder, and legs before the kite plummeted over the cliff's edge, getting tangled in some brush perhaps 6 feet beneath me on the cliff face. It was just a kite string, and not something that under normal circumstances that I would have ever considered a danger to me. But following the disorientation of that first strike, followed almost immediately by the second impact, that kite had robbed me of my balance and focus just when I needed them most, and had become a very real threat to my life. The experience and the few merciful inches that spared me from a fatal fall have haunted me for a number of years now. Generally speaking, I'm not an anxious person. I've encountered bears on the trail. I've even had one growl and huff at me. I once unzipped my tent to find a 2,000-pound bison standing 3 feet from my face. I've nearly stepped on 1 or 2 rattlesnakes, and I've peered over countless cliffs. But in every one of those situations, I felt like I had options and some measure of control. I had no such comforts that day on Angel's Landing, and I was very fortunate to recover my balance. Even now, recounting the events of that day rekindles both the anxiety and the frustration. Take it easy, Steve. It's a long way down. I'm not going anywhere further. This has not been an easy video to make. I place a great amount of value on trail courtesy.
Thanks for waiting.
Hey, we're fine waiting. There's no reason to rush up here.
Yeah, that's for sure.
And I try to be kind and respectful to everyone on the trail, treating others the way I would want to be treated. And that includes avoiding recording video monologues, playing music, or behaving in a way that would detract from the experience of others, who are there to enjoy the land and the soundscape, not me. But after recovering my footing and turning to see the party responsible for the kite that might have cost me my life, I was beyond livid. A stupid, incredibly inconsiderate, and completely inappropriate stunt had nearly cost me my life. My body, still surging with adrenaline and my heart feeling like it might burst, I couldn't even formulate sentences. I couldn't even speak. I was so angry, but also grateful to still be alive. The guy flying the kite looked almost as pale as I felt, wide-eyed and silent. And after I had freed myself from the kite string, without prodding, he went to the edge, shook the kite loose, retrieved it, and put it away. And I can only hope that he never repeated that incredibly foolish and dangerous stunt again. I never said one word to him, and he never said one word to me. Honestly, I don't know what he could have said, but I like to think we both parted ways humbler and grateful that things turned out the way they did. Now, I've returned to the summit of Angel's Landing a few times since that day, leading others up to the summit and sharing my love of Zion and wilderness with them. Those treks and my near-fatal experience in 2015 have often led me to reflect on how Angel's Landing, Zion National Park, and more broadly, other national parks and forests have changed over the years.
Also so busy.
When my wife and I first summited Angel's Landing, it was a spiritual experience, conveyed best in the words of a woman from England we encountered at the summit, who said, "I'm not a religious person, but sitting here, I feel like there must be something out there." In those days, the summit was still, conversation was minimal, and reverent amazement was the norm. Yes, there were a few people taking photos, myself included, but even in that, the tone shared by those at the summit contrasts drastically with the prevailing spirit at the summit these days. Yes, people still ooh and ah, and I can personally attest that many people still experience something profound, suspended mid-canyon, 1,500 feet above the Virgin River in this priceless place. But my last few visits to the summit have also been punctuated by hoots, hollers, rowdy video calls with friends and family, shouting, swearing, building ridiculous, damaging, and hyperabundant rock cairns, and a remarkable number of people with their noses buried in their phones, frantically posting a barrage of photos and videos to social media. Summiting Angel's Landing is admittedly a very unique and iconic hiking experience, and I don't blame anyone for wanting to share their accomplishment. But why not wait until you've returned to your campground or hotel? You'll still get the same number of likes, and there's no risk that your live feed or your rowdy phone call will diminish or detract from someone else's experience. It's certainly possible to text or post to social media quietly, but why bury your nose in a phone instead of being fully in the moment and connected to this remarkable place? Now, I'm not big on the good old days mentality. I think that such a view is extremely flawed under the most favorable of circumstances. But the summit of Angel's Landing, as the name suggests, is said to be the domain of angels and heavenly beings. But nowadays it feels a whole lot more like a coffee shop or a sports bar than the sacred place it once was. Angel's Landing, like so many other wild spaces, has fallen prey to internet fame and the disruptive and often dangerous gimmicks that fuel clickbaity internet culture. In 2015, one of those stupid gimmicks nearly cost me my life. And I guess all I really want to say is that gimmicks are not harmless. On the extreme end of things, they may cost somebody their life. Before 2015, I definitely never would have imagined that death by kite might well have been the final sentence in the final chapter of my life. And even if some gimmicks aren't dangerous, they're almost always selfish and destructive, and a threat to our sacred and dwindling wild spaces. Now, I don't pretend to have any more right to Zion National Park than any of you. I don't set park rules or regulations, nor do I have any desire to do so. But I think there's an important message to be shared here. Something precious is being lost, and unless you've repeatedly explored our parks for years, it may be impossible to recognize the harm being done to the parks and the park experience. I am a Utah native, and while I celebrate the beauty of Utah, sometimes it breaks my heart to see what's happening to the state's iconic landscapes, especially in and near Zion National Park. The harmful use of social media, coupled with the Mighty Five campaign, have brought people from everywhere to come and enjoy Utah. including those who, like me, absolutely adore and cherish our parks. But they've also unleashed a torrent of unbelievable crowds, litter, graffiti, noise pollution, and worst of all, parasitic industries that are chewing through Utah's landscapes and resources at an unbelievable pace. Some consider Utah's Mighty Five campaign to be a rousing success, but many Utahns see it as a curse. And personally, I identify very much with the latter. Now, these treasures belong to all of us, but they're also under siege and vanishing at a startling speed. Development, vandalism, self-centered, and fraudulent internet culture are all destroying and erasing our greatest natural treasures, as well as the sacred spirit of wilderness. My invitation to you is simple. Love our parks so much that you want to reduce your footprint. Be courteous to the land and your fellow travelers, and let gimmicks be the business of the backyard barbecue and the bar stool. Wait half a day to call your friends and family or post your accomplishment online. Otherwise, you're probably missing the most rewarding part of your adventure, or potentially diminishing the experience for others. And whatever your spiritual inclination, let's not only protect the scenery in our parks and wild spaces, let's also protect the reverent, humble, and vanishing spirit that helps each of us connect with something greater than ourselves. And all that takes is a little bit of courtesy, with a dusting of restraint. Now, there are hazards inherent in summiting Angel's Landing, and this trail is definitely not appropriate for everyone. Like two kids my wife and I once encountered along the chain section that were in complete hysterics because their grandparents were fixated on a bucket list checkmark and were pressuring them to continue along the chain section instead of turning back. A bucket list checkmark isn't worth it if people aren't prepared for this trail. If you have members of your party that are nervous and want to turn back, stay together and help them reach safety before continuing to the summit. Poor choices and missteps on this trail, like other trails, can have life or death consequences. Now, in my opinion, Angel's Landing is far less dangerous than it's often portrayed online by outlets and personalities far more interested in your attention than your enlightenment. But the risks outdoors are largely dependent on you, and as I learned the hard way, on the courtesy of the other people sharing the trail. Let's also mention that reaching the summit is only the halfway point. And if you ask me, the most intense part of ascending Angel's Landing is having to descend Angel's Landing.
Just because this is a different perspective going down.
And you go down, that's when
Oh my gosh.
you're just...
Okay.
It's easy not to look down when you're climbing to the summit, but you don't have that choice when you're climbing back down. Step after step, it can feel like you're staring oblivion in the face, which, depending on your personality, can be pretty cool. Just make sure that you're prepared for both the climb up as well as the climb down. And I guess I should also mention that since 2022, everyone who hikes Angel's Landing needs to get a permit from the National Park Service. For those of you who have made the climb after the permit program was introduced, do you feel like the experience has improved? I'd love to hear your thoughts, so let me know in the comments. And thanks for joining me today. I hope you consider sharing this video with your friends and family, especially if you plan to visit Zion or any of our national parks. And if you find value in informed, honest, and reliable outdoor content, then please hit like, subscribe, and ring the bell to be notified about upcoming videos. And until next time, this is Mike, wishing you all safe, courteous, and life-changing adventures.